welcome to episode 2 of the Nap and Knit podcast. My name's Sarah, and this is a podcast about knitting mostly, but maybe whatever else comes to mind. But today it is going to be mostly knitting. I didn't mean to pick that up and show you yet. I just have nervous hand energy. I just took my dog, Appa, for a walk outside. We live in Wisconsin. Today it is negative, I think it's actually 3 degrees, but the feels like was like -6 or -7, and it was so cold, but he was so happy. He's a Great Pyrenees lab mix, so he was just jumping around. He was like having the best time. I was wearing like shoes that went up to here to keep my legs dry because we've got over a foot of snow, it feels like, so it was just a little bit chaotic, but overall a really good time. I didn't mean to be wearing this. I was just collecting the things that I wanted to show. It ended up on my neck. So if I'm a little flushed, my face is very cold, that is why. But yeah, I've been wanting to record for a little while, but we just went on a trip to Pennsylvania to see my family. Sort of a belated Christmas trip because we couldn't go at the end of last year because I was working. So we went in mid-January. We sort of did a little bit of weirdness where we were in Pennsylvania for a little bit, and we actually flew from Pennsylvania to Houston to visit my husband's family for the Chinese New Year. Then we flew back to Pennsylvania and we drove back just 2 days ago. So we've been gone for like 2.5 weeks. Which is why I haven't really recorded or done anything, but I thought it would be kind of cool to catch up and talk about the things I've knit. And you might think 2.5 weeks, largely travel, family time, she's gonna get so much done. That's kind of what I thought. And it's like sort of true and sort of not true. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking. Whenever I go home, when I used to go home during like breaks in college, like Thanksgiving break or whatever, my brain just like died. Like I was so tired, I would just sleep and sleep and sleep, and I would like sleep in, I would go to bed early, and I would just sleep so much. And it's so weird, but whenever I go home, I feel like my brain just reverts to that because I just become so tired all the time. It maybe doesn't help that my mom gives us like all of these goodies and yummy food and stuff like that, so I'm also just like full all the time. But basically I didn't get as much knitting done as I kind of hoped or envisioned I would. Even with all the car time and stuff, I just a lot of times just wasn't in the brain space to knit. I just kind of was tired or a little bit like, I don't know, listening to something or thinking about something or doing something else. A lot of our car time was spent doing the crossword. My husband and I do the New York Times crossword every day, so it was like, can't exactly do the crossword myself and knit at the same time. I kind of can, but not actively. Or it's a little slower than I want it to be. So yeah, I still do have a bit of knitting to show, but we can start with what I'm wearing because that probably is the most logical place to start. Actually, let's start with my new friend. So it's not obvious from this corner. It could be if I started picking up some objects around me, but I love cows. I have loved cows all my life. I have a bajillion stuffed cows, like not taxidermy cows. That is not a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing, but I would never. But I have a million stuffed cows like this. And while I was in Pennsylvania, I went to Costco with my mom, and I saw this little guy peeking his head out of a box, and I was like, I need him. I have been looking for him in our Wisconsin Costco's forever with no luck. Maybe because it's Wisconsin and everybody wants the cows, but I saw him and I was like, Mom, I need that. So I had to drive him home, which was funny because we like strapped him into the car seat with my dog. Not the car seat with my dog, into the back in the seat with my dog, who was also in the back, and my dog was like resting his head on him to sleep. But this is a new friend. He's very big, as you can see, and I've named him Uyu, U-Y-U, which is the Korean word for milk. And I'm just obsessed with him. So he's just gonna chill over here, my little friend. But moving on from that, what I'm wearing. this is the Panglossian sweater by More Thunder. I had such big dreams of looking up details about this, and then I just totally forgot because I was gathering all the other things I have in front of me. So here we are. It is the Panglossian sweater. I have made a Ravelry page for this, so I will link it in the comments. I can tell you the yarn is Malabrigo Washted, W-A-S-H-T-E-D, and there's 4 colors, so let me just sit up just a little. So it kind of, I sort of implemented it as a fade to kind of go from this blue, and you can't exactly tell, but it starts fading into this reddish kind of color here, and then down into this goldenrod. So I'll just do that so you can maybe see a little better. I did a modification to the sleeve to do this white and then just do this at the end. I can't remember. I think the actual pattern has the pattern throughout, but it might also be that it doesn't have it at all. But either way, I decided to do this because I was running low on these yarns, so I didn't want to use like chance running out, but I did want to have like a little bit of accent. I made this sweater a while ago. It was my first, I think, like yoked colorwork sweater. Definitely things that I would do better now that I have learned some more. There's definitely like some tightness up here because I don't think I caught my stitches. So some things like that, but overall I like the fade a lot, and I just think it's kind of a fun sweater. It is a circular yoke, but I do think that that shape is not super flattering on me. So I don't know, it's just one of those things. I think Casey from Young Folk Knits was talking about like how she is thinking about like circular yoke sweaters and trying to find that perfect fit. But I think for me, circular yokes also don't work super well. But I'm still giving them a try. I've got the halibut sweater and the needles because even if it's not the thing I want to wear outside 100% of the time, it's still a really comfy, warm sweater that makes me happy. So we're gonna not give up on them yet. But I think my preference is not always circular yoke. I think I like a raglan or a drop shoulder. I think I really like a drop shoulder, but I do love an oversized sweater. So that's what I'm wearing. Details will be below so that you can kind of see some information about it as well. But yeah, with that, let me transition into, we'll do finished objects first. I don't know when all of these were finished. They were finished in the month of January, I think, and I don't believe I talked about any of them in my last video because I mostly talked about gifts. But some of these were gifts, and I don't have pictures of them, but some of them I will have here with me, so I'll just kind of start to go through the list. I'm looking down at a notebook that I have right here. So sorry if I keep doing that, that's why. But we'll start with the first one, which is something I had on the needles for ages. Like, I cast this on almost as soon as it came out. I bought the yarn when it came out. But I just never finished the hood. So it's been like half finished with the hood, this like edging on the hood not complete and the I-cord not complete. And I finally just like sat down and I was like, I'm gonna finish it. So this is finally done. This is the No Sweatshirt by, I think, Park and Knit. The yarn is Noro Kakigori. I don't know the colorway, but if you look it up, it's going to be pretty obvious to you. I don't know why I picked pink. Pink is like not really my color. But anyways, this yarn in general is like super gorgeous. Just like the ways the different colors pop out, and it looks really cool in that reverse stockinette stitch. I'm probably not gonna put this on because I'm lazy and it'll look silly over a sweater. We'll try it. We'll see how it looks over another sweater. Oh, I can already feel the sleeves. That's fine. I made it a little oversized. I think Park in her photos is wearing it as like a swimsuit cover up because it's like a very kind of like lightweight yarn, and I think that's what I envisioned for myself too, so I made it pretty roomy. And overall, also really happy with this. Let me see if I can pull the hood up. And yeah, sorry for my hair. It's a little bit of chaos. But I got these little ties so we can do that classic thing that we used to do in high school, scrunch up our faces. The hair is chaos, but I really love this one. I love the color that she made it in, the like white with cream sort of thing with other speckles. I think it's probably a little bit more wearable than the pink, so a little part of me is like, should I make another? But I think we're gonna go a year with this, see, you know, like opportunities I have to wear it, how it withstands, how I feel about like the size I made, and maybe I'll make another if I still want to after that. But overall, really loved it. And that was like truly something I started when the pattern came out, so it's been on the needles for a very long time. But I wanted to finish it up, and that was something that I did and was very exciting. Another thing that I had the needles for not nearly as long, but still a little while, was the Dumpling Bag. This is a Purl Soho pattern, and it's just like a little bag. You kind of stick this through here, and you can hold it like this. It doesn't have anything in it, so it's just a little bit floppy right now, which is kind of weird, but if I put some objects in it, it looks a little nicer. I don't know, let me shove some yarn in it and you can see. But yeah, this is made, I started this on my trip to Taiwan with my husband. We went to like, it was called like Mama Bear Crafts or something like that, so I bought the yarn there. They had a lot of like linen and cottony kind of blends, but a lot of the woolen stuff was sort of pretty expensive and seemed a little bit generic, and this also seemed kind of generic. And there's nothing wrong with generic yarn, but you know, a lot of times when I travel I look for like special hand-dyed skeins, and they didn't really have much of that. It seemed more like the equivalent of like a Michael's or a something. So I did buy this yarn though. I bought 200 grams of it, which is I think about 200 meters. It was a pretty even translation, and it's just this linen. And I made this bag. I started it in Taiwan, but I didn't finish it until in October, and I didn't finish it until sometime in either late December or early mid-January. So overall, pretty happy with it. When I did it, the pattern, it's a free pattern, calls for a provisional cast on at the bottom, and then you sew the bottom up later. I thought, gross, I don't want to do that. I don't like provisional cast-ons. I'm just gonna do sort of like a toe-up sock cast-on, so like Judy's Magic cast-on, I think is what it's called, and knit up from there. That was in theory an okay idea, except this yarn is really stiff, and just with the seams it didn't really ever end up a circle because it, you know, has the straight seam down it, so it was a little bit hard to sort of like turn and knit. But so I probably wouldn't do that again unless I had a much softer yarn or much bigger needles, but I was kind of working with what I had traveled with, which was not as suitable for it. So it worked out, but it was definitely a struggle in the beginning. Sorry, I had to pause for a moment to cough. I think the cold is catching up to me. We will move on to our next finished object. Everybody is making this, so I made one too. This is the Sophie Scarf. I think it's too big. I watch a lot of knitting podcasts, so here we are. I was watching a We Share Needles podcast, and Kristen, I think, showed one of hers, and I think it made me realize that mine's way too big. It used up almost 50 whole grams of yarn. I did not take a gauge swatch because literally never. I did do the small size, but it ended up, you know, this long. I didn't measure it. I don't really care. It does, you know, tie around my neck nicely like this, which I think is cute, but I have been tending to wear it a little bit more as like a headband kind of situation. Just something like that. I feel a little bit like Kiki's delivery service, which is definitely not a bad thing. I'll usually tie it again, but I think it's very cute. I might make another one. I feel like they would be cute to have in a variety of colors, but I haven't really found a way to like embed it in my everyday outfits. Like I wear it at home, but I haven't really worn it out. So I don't know. And maybe it's just because this is a little too big and the yarn's a little too chunky. It might be better in like a fingering weight where it's not so large, I feel like. But this is another finished object. The yarn I used was Drops Lima in red, I think. And I used pretty much the whole 50 grams. So I think it only calls for like 35. I did use the recommended needle size, so I probably have my gauge very off. But two other things. Well, kind of two, but kind of five. Well, I talked about one already. I went on a Thicksgiving sock spree. The Thicksgiving socks, I think are by Summer Lean Knits, but now I'm questioning myself, so it'll be in the description box. But the Thicksgiving sock pattern is basically a sock pattern where there's a few variations. There's like a ribbed version, a cabled version, and a stockinette version, and they're just knit kind of like with two fingering weight yarns held together. And I kind of was having like a moment about stash and wanted to use stuff up, so that's what I was doing. And I in particular had this collection of fingering weight scraps from previous socks I had made that I really wanted to kind of like work through, and I feel bad getting rid of them, and I like my scraps. Like I think it's cool to have them and use them. So this is the most recent finished pair of socks, but I decided to make Thicksgiving socks with them, and I kind of accepted that they were going to be kind of ugly socks, but I love them. So here's the sock. These are just for me, but let me just show you. So this is the first sock. It's just two yarns held together throughout. I mostly just switched to a new yarn when the old one ran out, but some of them I cut if it was just like a really long section. And here's the other sock. I obviously have not sewn in my ends. I will at some point, but as you may imagine, there's a lot of ends in there, and I don't really feel like thinking about it. But here they are. They decidedly do not match, and I do not care. I'm actually thinking that I might make another pair that are just like the exact same formula, we'll call it, so that I can just like interchange and just have Scrappy socks. I did make a slight modification to the pattern, which is that in the stockinette version they have an afterthought heel. I've still never done an afterthought heel, and I just like wasn't in the mindset to do that. I also feel like I kind of like the way this looks, like just transitions into the colors, so I just put in a heel flap and just kind of improvised that a little bit. But that was, I think, the only modification that I actually made to the pattern. So this is the first pair of Thicksgiving socks. I had previously talked about one and shown one that I made for my brother's girlfriend, but while I was making that, I was thinking I should make socks for my husband's. I feel like I talked about this last episode because I had a panic about how to say like sister-in-laws for my sister-in-law. So I did end up making socks for them both. I went with more neutral colors for each of them, and they were both approximately like a size 7. I did the same thing where I just kind of did a heel flap instead of the afterthought heel, and one was sort of like a pink and brown one that used 2 yarns. One was Tsuki Mountain Fibres Blissful Blossom, which I believe was a club colorway, and then a brown, it was Foxy Lady by Farmer's Daughters Fibers in the color Ranc Brown, R-A-N-C brown. I might be mispronouncing that. And the other one was a yellow yarn that I hand dyed, and another yarn by Tsuki Mountain Fibres, which I think was called Airplanes, but I think it was another neutral club colorway from when she was doing those. So I'm gonna just put pictures of those right here. because those have been gifted and given away and I no longer have them. But they were so fast to knit up, and I just felt so good because it was like, yes, done with this. So that was nice. But yeah. And then my final finished object is a pair of mittens. I made my husband, I've made him many socks, I've made him many sweaters, many things, and he's been begging me for a pair of mittens. He's like, please just make me mittens. I don't need a sweater, just make me mittens. What if you made me mittens? That kind of thing. And I just like haven't had the mental energy or motivation or something to do it. No. I was like, I don't want to make mittens. No. And this time I did make my mom a pair of mittens, so like clearly I was capable of making mittens, but for whatever reason I just had this mental block. Finally, we were on this trip. I get in the car and I'm like, I'm gonna make you these mittens. So we're driving back on, I think, a Thursday. I start the mittens on Thursday. I think I truly had them finished by that Saturday. Like, it was 3 days and they were all done. I didn't really use a pattern. I just kind of sort of used a pattern to sort of get that initial count, and then just the increases for the thumb gusset on each side, and then added the thumb in later. Just measured it along his hand. The yarn was it was this yarn, but in a blue. It's this yarn. But it's Cloudborn limited edition wool worsted, which I got off of Webs a long time ago. But it's this pretty blue color. I don't have the mittens with me. They are somewhere in my husband's coat or something, so I will also throw a picture of them right here, but they're really just very basic mittens. So yeah, that was all the finished objects that I'm kind of counting for January. I think there is some other things that I kind of finished, like gift knits or things like that, that I'm counting towards my, what we're gonna call January total, but I'll talk more about that later. But those are kind of like the big things that I had to show. I'm actually lying. There is one more. It is the Beads of Joy sweater by James N. Watts. I test knit that and I finished that in early January, and I don't believe I talked about it on the previous one because I think I just talked about gift knits. But I will also put a picture of that here. I test knit that in Knit Picks Chroma Worsted in the colors Fathom and Seahorse. It was such a fun knit, and I don't normally like picking up stitches, but something about the wiggles made it like kind of fun, and I think it is such a cool sweater. It'll be interesting to see how it wears because that Knit Picks Chroma Worsted is very, like, it's like a single ply and it seems a little bit fiddly, so I'm wondering if it's gonna kind of like felt or start pilling, but we're gonna see. I still need to sew in my ends. They're just kind of tucked onto the inside right now, but that was a super fun test knit. I think I've done 2 test knits for James and Watts now, and they were both so fun. So I like want to do more test knitting, so I think that was like a very cool opportunity to have. But those are, I think, the big things. Yeah. Wow. Okay, we are going to do our, I don't know why I did that. That's weird. We are going to do our segment on works in progress. And while I have a million works in progress on the needle, as we do, I'm specifically going to talk about the ones that I'm actively working on, just for the sake of time and sanity. But with that, I think there's only 4 that come specifically to mind. And I've got them all right here. So we'll start with this one, just to kind of talk about the progress I've made. This is the Half and Half Triangle Wrap by Purl Soho. Again, a free pattern. This is their linen quill yarn in Twig Brown and Juniper Green. I talked about this one last time, so I won't go too crazy. I think I did. I don't know if I did. It's a free pattern. I'm doing the 260 stitches version, which is the large one. And I'm on my brown triangle right now. Before I went on my trip, I put a stitch marker in So I'm doing my increases, so every row it gets 1 stitch longer. This is where I was when we started the trip. This is where we are now. So I did almost nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 rows. I had envisioned getting a lot more done, but this guy's a little bulky and hard to kind of bring around easily. I couldn't bring it to Texas because it was just way too big for the plane. So that's all right. It's just kind of one of those easy couch knit sort of projects, so it's not a bad thing to have on the needles. But I am a little bit ready for it to be done. I think this is just a little too big for me emotionally. Like, I think I'll like the size of it when it's done, but I think it's just a big project, and I'm like, let's wrap it up now. So yeah, that is my first work in progress. My second one is something that I suppose you could say, designing myself. I've been like dreaming of a bee cowl, like just like a bee patterned cowl, for a long time. I finally got my act together and sort of made a chart. So I've been working on that. So here's her so far. It's mostly flowers, but it'll have these little bees scattered throughout. I think it's cute. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's like the perfect size to kind of stay snug on my face, which is good, because some of the cowls that I currently have are a little too floppy and don't really stay up. But yeah, I've been working on this. The pattern was charted by myself, and this is my first time ever doing ladder back jacquard, which, if you've never heard of that, is basically a technique where you sort of create an extra stitch that hangs out on the inside. So it's a way of catching your floats that's not visible at all on the front side. In my experience, when I catch floats, sometimes you can see them peeking through, especially if it's like a darker color. So black in this case, you can see I have some pretty long floats right here. But you really, I think, can't see them at all through this. And you can see my ladder back jacquard. I've got that stitch right there. It's a really cool technique, and one that I think I would definitely try on some other things in the future too. It was so much less complicated than I thought it was going to be, which is really exciting. But this is one of my works in progress. It's my bee cowl that, if folks are interested in, maybe I'll write up a pattern for or something like that. I was also thinking these would make some really cute socks, but I'd have to figure out like sizing and so on. This is Drops Lima. I don't know the colors, but it's probably pretty straightforward. I think it's just black and then maybe like mustard or marigold or something like that. So the overall goal is to have like 4 motifs. So I'll do a bee and then another flower row and then another bee row, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think it's very cute, and I'm very excited to keep working on it and finish it and see how it kind of turns out in the end. It's also pretty intuitive, which is nice, like, because there's not, I guess, too much going on, so it's pretty easy to know what's going to happen next, because the flower remains the same throughout. The bee is a little tricky just because I messed up its wings the first time around, because I like assumed it should be one thing, and then I looked at my pattern and I was like, bad assumption. But yeah. The other 2 things I'm working on are socks. So I was thinking I might make a different video to talk about like my sock drawer or sock madness or something, just because I don't want this to be excessively long. But there is this competition it's a speed knitting competition for socks in February, and I first did it I think 3 years ago. And I have probably like 6 pairs of socks or 7 that came out of that competition. I was really into it the first year, and then the past 2 years have been a lot busier, so I haven't been able to kind of like progress as far. We'll see how this year goes, but it starts in February. I think the goal is that it lines up with like March Madness because it's called Sock Madness. But basically, I'm trying to clear off my sock needles before we get there so that I can have both of them free and maybe work on socks 2 at a time, like both at the same time on mini needles, something like that. So with that, I have 2 pairs of socks that I'm working on finishing up and hoping to get done probably by the end of this week or so, just so I can be done with them. This is the first pair. This is Knit Picks Felici in the colorway Red Rocks. This is the Magic Acorn Heel Sock, and it's pretty straightforward. It's really cute. I really like the colors. It might be a gift for my mom or something like that, but it's just been something I've been working on recently, and you know, I've got a little bit more to go. You know, I'm probably about halfway done, so it should be fairly easy to wrap up, and it's very mindless, which is nice. I have the first one done, but I don't know where it is, so it's fine. The second one is also Knit Picks Felici. I was in a mood, I think, but this is the Game Over colorway. This is also just a really straightforward vanilla sock. I'm doing 56 stitches because I think my Felici gauge is bigger, so it just ends up a little looser. Normally I do a 56 stitch sock. I'm using the Fish Lips Kiss heel pattern, which is just one on Ravelry that teaches you how to do sort of like this heel that I really like, and it's really like mindless, which is good. I don't always like the fiddliness of heel flaps and things like that. Sometimes I just want to stay on my 9-inch needles, and that is perfect for this, especially because I didn't do like a contrast color cuff toe heel or anything like that. So here's the second one. I've already done the heel turn, so I've got, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 more stripes and then the toe, and then I'll be done. So I'm thinking I'll be done this one pretty soon because literally I'm just knitting in a circle right now. There's nothing complicated about it, but yeah. So those are my 2 currently in progress sock whips that are on my 9-inch circulars that I would like to clear off. Yeah, those are all my active whips that I wanted to kind of chat through right now. I think the final thing that I will do is a little acquisition section. Well, I'll do 2 things. And I'm trying to think about what order makes sense. I know some people don't really care for acquisitions, so maybe I will do my summary section and then I'll go into acquisitions. So let's do that. Okay, so I've been trying to do a better job tracking my knitting this year. I bought myself this journal and we're working on our process for it, but right now I've kind of got it tracked like this with knitting projects here and knitting yarn and yarn here, so to kind of like calculate totals in and out. I'm not going to zoom in like crazy because it's very tiny handwriting and a little bit chaotic, but I'm kind of planning to just do this at the start of every month, carry over any active whips and kind of figure it out from there so that I can have that record of where things are and what's going on with them. So I've kind of got all the projects I finished and some of that I haven't yet finished over here, and with any of the ones that I finished I wrote down what yarn I used, the starting weight, the ending weight, so I could calculate both grams used and yards used. Now really technically some of these are probably predating January, but I don't care. We're gonna count them in the January total because that's a little easier and I wasn't keeping track before then, so that's fine. But I basically did the math to figure out how much yarn did I use by the end of January, and the way I counted it was anything I finished in January, regardless of when it started, is included. And 2, we aren't counting scraps in our total. And what I mean by that is if I have 200 grams and I used 163 grams, and now I've got that 37 gram ball left, I'm only counting 163 grams because I like to use my scraps and I kind of put them somewhere else to figure out and do something with. So we're only accounting for the fact that I used 163 grams, not all 200. Which is a little weird because it's not clear what that other weight is going to go to or how I'm going to use that, but that's kind of my idea in terms of tracking and keeping that all together. So, end of January, I used up 1,211 grams of yarn total. I can't really contextualize this in the size of what I have because I do not know what I have. But I think it's probably a very small dent. We'll say that. In terms of yardage, it was a whole bunch of varied weights and things like that, but when it came down to it, it was approximately 3,500 yards of yarn that I used up. So overall, I think pretty good. When I had been thinking at the beginning of the year, my goal was like, okay, let's get rid of 5,000 yards of yarn, and I'm like, I think I can do more than that. To be fair, I was finishing up a lot of like bigger works in progress, like this for example, so it's probably not a super accurate number, but we'll kind of see how February progresses. I did acquire some yarn. I'm not doing a no buy. I'm not doing like a can't bring any yarn into my stash because I like having stash and variety and things like that. So I did acquire some yarn. It was actually very recent and it was in preparation for Sock Madness. So I acquired 500 grams of sock yarn, which did equivocate to 2,190 yards. So kind of a lot. So when it comes down to it, in January net decreased 711 grams of yarn, which was approximately 1,310 yards. So, you know, pretty good. I'm not mad at myself for it. So, when I'm thinking about goals for next month, I think definitely I'm doing Sock Madness, which will be sort of like a mid-February and then go throughout the spring kind of thing. So I definitely need to finish my 2 socks before then, but I am thinking I will also try to dedicate some time to my bee cowl so that I can get that out because it feels like a nice transition into a springy thing. So that's sort of 2 of the things I'm thinking about. One of the other things I'm thinking about is my younger sister has a birthday in March, and I think when I was back home for Christmas, I was wearing my Look at My Holes top by J. Watts, and she loved it. She actually took it and wore it over some of her clothes, which was fun because it just like, I don't know, I feel like I'm like kind of the lame older sister. Like she's like fun and cool and understands things that Gen Zers understand, and I'm like not. So it was like kind of fun to see that she liked it, and I was like, okay, well, should I make you one? And she was like, yeah. So I thought I would make her that for her birthday and send it to her so that she could have it. And that's a really quick knit, and I am gonna make it in the exact same yarn that I made mine in, so I figured that's something that I could do leading up to Sock Madness as well, potentially. But those are some of my sort of dreams for February. And with that, I think I will finally move on to acquisitions. If you do not like acquisitions, do not want to see the yarn I've bought, totally understand. And I can see you next time. You know, if there's anything you'd like to see or want to see or don't like seeing, definitely feel free to comment or anything like that. If you do want to like or subscribe, that would be sweet. It would be encouraging to me to keep doing this. I don't know if I should keep doing this, but you know, if it is interesting to you or you like to see the things I'm doing or whatever, let me know. But yeah, we'll jump into acquisitions. I am trying to do this one with a little less bloopity bloop in between because editing's a pain. And when I'm watching a lot of podcasts, I was thinking about it and I was like, a lot of the ones that I really enjoy are a bit more conversational. So knitting traditions or we share needles, just kind of like talking, going, digging into things. Like, I think I enjoy that. So that's a little bit what I am attempting to do. There's still gonna be some little blips because I don't know, I probably want to put in a video of my dog, but this is gonna be confusing because I'm gonna say it and maybe I will have already done it. Acquisitions. So I bought this yarn from Eat Sleep Knit, which is a knitting website. They also have a store in, I think, Georgia. They do like this yearly kind of competition where you're put on a team and you can submit projects. I've done it a few years and I've struggled sometimes just because I like I've never had a lot of time to like keep up with an active community or anything like that. So I didn't always do a perfect job keeping up or anything like that, but a lot of times I like to buy my yarn there because they have a really great selection, a lot of different colors and indie dyers, and it's kind of nice to get it all in one place and sort of theoretically contribute to like this competition thing. I don't know, but this is all from there. It's all theoretically sock yarn, although I'm questioning myself on one of them. But I'll start with maybe the most boring one first. Here's the first one. This is black, although it's presenting a little blue, I feel like, in this. It's just Cascade Heritage in the color 5601, which I think is just black or jet black or something. I just bought it because I feel like black is good to have as a contrast color for anything, toes, heels, just in general. It goes contrasts with things well. So it was kind of like a, just in case I need it for a 2-color sock purchase. The next one I'll talk about is I did buy some yarn from Squoosh Fiber Arts. I think these were on sale as discontinued colorways, so I figured why not. So I bought both of these. This is Squoosh Fiber Arts Beefcake Sock. This one's the color French Kiss, and this one's the color Pomegranate Martini. These are both 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. You can kind of see them. I did think that these could kind of go together, like some of the colors in this are similar to the pink, especially down here. They could maybe go together or they could not, you know, like I'm not opposed to a hot pink sock. So that was the idea. I forgot to say this is also, oh, it said on there, so maybe you saw, but 75 superwash merino and 25% nylon. So bought these two also for Sock Madness. I have another Squoosh Fiber Arts purchase. You can see this one looks considerably chunkier. And the yardage is definitely lower, so it's 370 yards. It's got merino silk and cashmere in 75, 15, and 10, whereas this is 460 yards. So that's a pretty significant difference, but I think this would still kind of qualify as like a fingering, maybe sport weight. Either way, the color is called Sweet Potato, which I think is just like so appropriate, and I think it's very, very beautiful. I also thought like these went together really well, but also like just a plain sock in this color would be gorgeous. And finally, my very last acquisition is Teal Torch Knits. It's a company in Portland, Oregon. This is called TTK Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 463 yards in this little guy. The color is named Sinking in My Soul, which I love. But it's this beautiful like light purpley sort of color with these like just flecks of loveliness in there. So I figured, again, that could work really well. Or again, plain, beautiful. So these were the sock yarns that I bought, just sort of as a lot of them can go together, a lot of them can be separate, for preparing for Sock Madness. I'll be sure to talk about that more as the time comes. I was thinking that maybe I would do a video to talk through my Sock Madness sock drawer. Maybe do a little bit about what the competition is and why I participate, and just kind of show you some of the socks I've made in previous years. But I'm not going to put it in this video because then that will be way too long. But yeah, that was everything I had to share this week. I meant to be knitting this whole time, but I get so distracted when I have to like touch things and think about things. I think I'm gonna go bring this little guy upstairs, hang out with my dog and make some lunch, and then I'll come back down and edit a little later and maybe post this, and maybe sew on some ends. I don't know. The day is my oyster. I just got the shivers like in the middle of that sentence, which is why it was so weird. But yeah, thank you for watching. Commenting if you do. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's nice to have the ability to talk to the internet about some of the things that I'm doing, because I have been really enjoying making lately and wanting to make a lot of different things, and I think it's always so cool to share with others and to see the things other people are doing. So feel free to comment, share what you're doing, how your winter's going. If you also are living somewhere extremely cold and your dog's obsessed with it, and maybe you're not as obsessed with it and he still wants to go on really long walks and you're slippery sliding down the street all the time, things like that. But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day or night or whatever it might be, and see you guys in the next one.